Hello and welcome back to new Global Space Program video. And in today's mission we are starting with a nice new speed build with 4 times regular speed. So for those of you who don't want to see the speed build, I think around 2 minutes or so is left out, so jump forward to that section. Anyhow, so today we're building a small space station, or well, I wouldn't say actually small, a regular-ish sized space station. However, why I kind of started with a small space station is since we're not going to add a bunch of modules, a bunch of add-ons or other features to it. It's a pretty plain space station, just a core module, well, the core module obviously that we're building right now, and a, how's it called? Not electricity, power module, there you go, and power modules, aka some solar panels that can swivel. Similar to the previous one that we've built, however. Anyhow, you'll see what I mean. So the main reason or the question is, why are we building a simpler, plain space station, which kind of might seem a bit boring, might seem a bit plain, and there are a couple of reasons. The primary reason is I didn't want to make a ridiculous type of payload for the crown, or for the rocket that we're launching today. That's reason number one. And reason number two is I actually thought about quite a while about what to do as a next video or something. So I came up with the idea of exploration Duna, or just going to Duna as a general kind of idea, because we don't have any space stations around Duna at this point in time. I decided let's go and build a space station around Duna, and then I was first going on like the previous, like the really major, nice, good, great space stations with a bunch of nice features and this and that. And for those of you who jump forward to the liftoff, welcome. So we have here a nice liftoff. Back to the point, however, we're building a rather plain space station because, well, like I said, we don't have a space station yet around Duna. The other reason is I don't want to cram too many things into this one launch. And then I kind of came up with a second video, so kind of a follow-up to this one, so stay tuned. Maybe it already dropped if you're not watching this right when it came out. So kind of a follow-up mission to this space station, which is kind of the setup for a rather larger exploration of Duna, or just larger, just a few more, a bit more elaborate, let's say that elaborate mission to Duna. So that's why we're also launching without any crew. For those of you who haven't noticed, in the bottom right corner we don't have any crew. And like I said, this is exactly the reason. This is only kind of a setup mission. If you want to have some sort of equivalent or something, you might actually want to have a look, or just consider it something like the Gateway space station from NASA, which would go around the moon. But this time we're just going like straight to Duna, aka the Mars equivalent. We're just preparing the space station for the crewed mission further down the timeline, kind of a bit later on. So that's why we're actually launching this without a crew and a rather plain space station, in order to have the opportunity and the possibility to add on different modules, which will further kind of a bit depend on the exploration ship, which I haven't designed, obviously haven't launched just yet, however do have a couple of ideas. The other reason is I do want to keep it in one launch, and like I said, not a ridiculous launch vehicle with a bunch of add-ons that are sticking out of the fairing or this or that. Speaking of fairing, the only thing that is actually in the fairing are the modules that will be reconfigured to the space station. So we'll see this later on in the video when we're going to actually reconfigure the space station, but I do personally really enjoy putting on the modules, or just generally speaking other parts of the space station that will be reconfigured along the space station in order to not make a humongous wide fairing, like the very first space stations / generally speaking bases or videos on this channel. Anyhow, can you guys see, well, at first actually it's not really that large of a similarity, but the first stage is quite similar to a real-life rocket. Sadly we couldn't mold the thrust of the largest engines that are available in the game were not enough to actually get this craft off the launch pad, because otherwise this would be very similar to that rocket's first stage. So if you know what rocket I'm talking about, tell it down in the comments below. Or maybe just my recreational skills are totally garbage and no one can figure it out, but that's... Anyways, let's rather end this this part of the video on a rather positive note, right? Anyhow, so this is actually a total ascent. It's something I rarely show, but I thought it would be kind of, or the ascent in general was a very nice and smooth one, and I really think it's kind of a nice add-on to have it in the video. So now we are actually in a in a low Cuban orbit, and now we're opening up the fairing to drop some mass and actually burning the remaining fuel from the first stage retrograde. Why retrograde? Well, in order for the first stage to deorbit, because we actually had enough fuel to get into perfectly get into orbit with the first stage. So we just reduced the periapsis into the atmosphere so that it will burn up in order to not leave any needless space junk. I'm not really that big of a, I'm not really that focused on keeping the space junk free. However, if I can if there's an opportunity and not to my castle, or actually not in the designing process, just during the flight, then I do tend to do those small things every now and then. Anyhow, the second stage has more than enough fuel to get us to Duna, so we just plan the regular maneuver now to Duna, and then with a small correction burn, and then we are already at Duna, or coming in close to Duna, right to our periapsis of 100-ish kilometers, because that's what I'm aiming. I'm planning on setting this space station into a nice 100 by 100 kilometer orbit above the surface of Duna. I do like placing my space stations in nice round numbers like 70 or 80 or 90, 100 or something like that, kilometers, a rather circular orbit. And for those of you who can see this, I think you can, yeah, now you can see it. I've placed the space station on purpose, not perfectly equatorially, since I do want to have a small variance in the inclinations to have easier access to you, but kind of a wider area of the planet's surface if we tend to lift off again and rendezvous with the space station. However, right now you can see something very, very interesting. Oh no, I guess it's a bit too early in the video at least. No, it isn't. Okay, there we go. We actually accidentally have inserted ourselves into a retrograde orbit, and I fiddled around with the periapsis and apoapsis markers perfectly, so now we have just tiny bit more than 100 kilometer periapsis and apoapsis, and we are actually pretty much in a parking orbit, however going the wrong way around Duna. So I checked with our delta V readings, aka our velocity, which is around 700, or was around 700 meters per second, and our delta V readings were 1000, I think 600 and something. Don't ask me. I can't remember it, and I can't even read it since the preview window is a bit too small. Anyhow, so I just figured out we just have barely enough fuel to do 180, so we just killed all of our velocity on the spot, started falling down, and continued to accelerate kind of backwards in our orbit until our entire orbit actually turned around 180 degrees. So now we are more or less, well, we are going the right way, kind of with the rotation of the Earth, because you do want to get this small little kick when you're taking off from a planetary body, just taking the rotation of that body into consideration in order to get already some free velocity towards your orbital speed. First of all, that's kind of on Duna, it's not that important, but on Eve or Cuban, that's very, very important. However, the bigger difference, at least for Duna and moons in this case right now, is the other crafts. Okay, we don't have that many important crafts just yet in orbit, but still having everything kind of orbiting in the same direction makes it a lot easier in order to kind of rendezvous. Just imagine we're going up with a lander and going the wrong way around, and then we don't have enough fuel in a lander stage, or ascent stage for that matter, in fact, to flip our entire orbit. The good thing is we had enough fuel to do this. The bad thing is we are now completely dry. We have zero fuel left, and we are not in a perfectly circular orbit. I'd say it's good enough. We have like 97-ish and 113-ish kilometers, like periaps and apoapses, respectively. So it's good enough in my opinion. Sadly, we do not have any spare fuel for future missions, or just when the exploration craft will come around, we don't have anything to reveal. But anyways, I never actually I didn't plan to incorporate this into the mission design, but it would have been nice to have some backup fuel. Anyhow, since we don't have any fuel left, we can't change our orbit, so we are in our targeted orbit. Brilliant, right? So time to actually reconfigure our space station, or just add our two small solar array arms, power modules. There you go, power modules. Again, already the second time in the video where I forgot bloody word. God darn it. Anyhow, so we're just taking our small little power modules, there you go, which are very simple construction, just truss segments with solar panels and the docking port in the front. This time I didn't go for junior docking port. Did I go last time for junior? I thought I did. Anyhow, so we have a regular docking port with a reaction wheel, because I think it's just for convenience sake, honestly. It's a bit more convenient having a strong reaction wheel for reorientating these crafts if you don't get them aligned perfectly. However, I wasn't that terrible at docking this time around, so we did get quite an easy docking here. And by the way, why did I already extend one of the 6 solar panels? Well, that's because in the top right corner you might have seen that we were running low on electricity, since these craft, or these kind of solar array arms, don't have a lot of battery capacity, and using it to control the craft obviously drains it, and we were not fast enough, let's just say it that way around. So now we're going to do the exact same thing with the second truss segment. Just going to coast upwards, or towards the right, towards left, downwards, whatever direction you actually see fit, since in space there are no real directions. Anyhow, the way the camera is pointed, slightly going up and forwards. Now we're going to flip over using the point towards target marker after we've obviously selected the docking port as our target, cancelling our relative velocity just by eyeballing things, pressing shift to move towards the docking port, and we have a nice docking. Now extending all the nice solar panels as a finishing touch, and then there are only a couple more things, well, a couple more, almost nothing left to do. Speaking of this space station, tell me down in the comments below whether you want us to ditch the rocket, aka the propulsion stage that we still have attached. Since we don't have any remaining fuel, there's no real need to keep it, because usually I do keep them in order to kind of keep the fuel that is left after arriving at the destination, but this time, because going backwards in an orbit wasn't actually a goal, so we used all the fuel. So tell me down in the comments below whether we should ditch it, or whether we should leave it as a fuel depot, or at least for the time being. Anyhow, we have used our small little rotary hinges to reorientate the solar array arms to make it look a bit more prettier, not just straight up like this, and that's actually a pretty cool feature. I do like moving those arms. And now we're just going to ditch the last little piece of junk that we have in the front, a small little adapter where we've had in order to transport our solar arrays. And with that being said and done, the space station is completed. Powering up, preparing, warming up, charging up its batteries, and doing all sorts of other Kerbal-y things without Kerbals aboard, and preparing for the Cobalt, aka crewed mission next time around. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and until next time, Spaceship signing out. Enjoy the rest of your week, my friends.